Welcome everyone to my presentation on what are components in Angular. I'm excited to guide you through the fundamental building blocks of Angular applications today. Let's dive in. Introduction to Angular. To begin, let's take a moment to understand Angular. Angular is a popular web application framework developed by Google, known for its powerful features like two-way data binding, dependency injection, and a modular architecture. One of its standout characteristics is the component-based architecture, which allows developers to build reusable and maintainable code efficiently. What is a component? So, what exactly is a component? In Angular, a component is a self-contained unit that encapsulates HTML, CSS, and TypeScript code. It serves as the core building block of an Angular application, promoting reusability and separation of concerns. Each component is responsible for a specific part of the user interface, making it easier to manage complex applications. Structure of a component. Let's look at the structure of an Angular component. Each component consists of three main parts: the template, which contains the HTML markup, the styles, where the CSS for styling resides, and the class, written in TypeScript, which contains the logic and behavior of the component. This separation helps keep the code organized and maintainable. Here's a diagram that illustrates how these elements work together. Creating a component. Creating a component in Angular is straightforward. You can use the Angular CLI by running the command generate component name. This command generates several files for you, including the HTML template, CSS styles, and a TypeScript class. This automated process helps developers quickly set up components with a consistent structure. Component metadata. Now, let's talk about component metadata. Angular uses a special decorator called @component to define a component. Key properties include the selector, which is the HTML tag used to embed the component, the template URL, which points to the HTML file, and the style URLs, which indicates the path to the CSS files. These properties tell Angular how to render the component in the application. Data binding in components. Data binding is crucial in Angular as it allows communication between the component and its template. There are several types of data binding: interpolation, which uses double curly braces to bind data; property binding, where values are bound to HTML element properties; event binding, which listens for user events; and two-way binding, which combines property and event binding using model. Each method plays a vital role in ensuring that the user interface remains in sync with the underlying data. Component lifecycle hooks. Angular components have a lifecycle managed by Angular itself, which includes various stages from creation to destruction. Lifecycle hooks are methods that Angular calls at these stages. Common hooks include onInit, which is invoked when a component is initialized, and onChanges, which is called when any bound input properties change. These hooks allow developers to manage the component's behavior effectively throughout its lifecycle. Component communication. Components often need to communicate with each other. In Angular, this can be achieved through several methods. Input properties allow parent components to pass data to child components, while output properties enable child components to emit events to their parents. Additionally, services can facilitate data sharing between components that are not directly related. This flexibility is one of the key advantages of Angular's architecture. Best practices. To ensure that your components are maintainable and reusable, here are some best practices to follow. Keep components small and focused on a single responsibility. Use descriptive names for components and their properties, and leverage Angular's built-in features, like services for shared logic. Following these practices will enhance the quality and maintainability of your code. Conclusion. In conclusion, we've explored the importance of components in Angular and how they serve as the backbone of Angular applications. Understanding components is crucial for building dynamic, efficient, and maintainable applications. I encourage you to apply what you've learned today and explore Angular's capabilities further. Thank you for your attention. I'd love to hear any questions or thoughts you might have about components in Angular. Feel free to ask.